welcome to all of you on the webinar today. We're really delighted that you've been able to join us. I'm Eleanor Morris. I work for WRAP, which is a UK-based sustainability charity with a vision for a world where resources are used sustainably. WRAP works with textiles, plastics and food, and it's one of our UK food projects that we'll be discussing today. On a global scale, 1/3 of food is thrown away, and wasting food feeds climate change. It wastes money, and of course, it's morally wrong. Our Guardians of Grub campaign was launched in 2019 to engage the hospitality and food service sector on helping to take action on this and making sure our carefully prepared and served food stays food and doesn't become waste. And the way we do that is by understanding where and how it ends up in the bin. Alongside our awareness raising campaign, we've introduced our Guardians of Grub Becoming a Champion pilot programme to enable behaviour change on the ground. So just going through our agenda, I'll be sharing with you the results of the pilot, and then I'm delighted to say that LEL UK are joining us, and you'll hear from them on their experience of becoming Guardian of Grub champions. Then my colleague Kerry from WRAP will be explaining how we'll be celebrating the champions through the Guardians of Grub campaign. Wendy Stanley from Virtual College will then talk us through the brand new updated Becoming a Champion behaviour change course, which you'll be able to access from July. And then it's over to you to ask any questions. So we have a Q&A session at 11:20. If you've got any questions, please just use the Q&A function, which you should see in the bar either at the top or the bottom of your screen. We'll be recording today's session for those that aren't able to make it and sharing that publicly afterwards. So I just wanted to explain a bit of background of the project. Why did we feel the need to develop this behaviour change programme? So our objective is to increase food waste reduction data capture and skills for the whole hospitality and food service sector. Whilst we've got our fantastic Guardians of Grub awareness raising campaign, we thought there was an opportunity to develop skills further and deeper on understanding and connecting learning with data capture and evidence as part of this project. The scale of the problem in the UK is that over 1 million tonnes of food are thrown away every single year by the sector. And the really staggering part of that is that 75% could have been eaten. So what we're trying to do is make sure that that number reduces through developing this project. So we've created an engaging behaviour change platform, which combines that learning with the on-the-ground data capture. We've done that with 5 levels that teams can work through to gain knowledge and develop their skills. And we've got different types of role within the project. Wendy will talk about this in a bit more detail. We've got an organisation sponsor who is the lead person that we make contact with, and they're responsible for setting up the system, both with us, but also internally engaging staff and teams on the programme. Then we've got the role of data custodian, and they're responsible for making sure that the data is entered correctly into the system. And then we have our champion participants. So they're our learner users. So everyone within the programme is a champion participant. We also have mechanisms and knowledge checks to check competency. And at the end of each level completed, you gain a certificate to prove your confidence and learning on that topic. We've got everything that you need to take action on site, whatever your role. And for the pilot, we tracked the changes in an 8-week measurement tool. So a bit about the timeline. We started work in January 2020. And really, I want to put a huge thanks out there to everyone that has been on this journey with us. We had roundtables and surveys that kicked off in January and February, early 2020. And then we had some absolutely fantastic representation across the sector who gave up their time during the pandemic to be part of our advisory group and really helped us shape and develop this learning so that we developed something that was really relevant to the sector. So I'd like to give you all a huge heartfelt thanks for being part of that. We developed the system and we went live in September 2020 and kept that live until the end of April, we've been undertaking a review, and we've got an enhanced and refreshed site that Wendy's going to be talking us through, and that's the one that will be going live in July. So I just want to give some context around these results. We have been doing this pilot in unprecedented and devastating times for this sector. And despite this, we have seen so much enthusiasm, so much commitment from the sector. Again, a massive thank you to everyone that was involved with this. From those of you that were able to register, but then perhaps weren't able to continue the learning for various reasons during the last few months, we really do thank you. You were keen to get started, but the circumstances weren't right. So for those of you, you can now take part in the July cohort, and we'd be delighted to have you as part of that. So despite the devastating circumstances, our brilliant hospitality and food service professionals have registered. We've had over 25 organisations register, over 264 learners were registered. So that was the intent to learn, but unfortunately, as I mentioned, the circumstances didn't necessarily allow for everyone to take part. So we had over 100 active users, and on average, those users completed 3 modules each. We had 40% of our learners completed all of the modules that were available within the system, which is absolutely fantastic. And we had evaluation points throughout the project so that we were making sure what were people finding useful, what were they enjoying, and so on. And 86% of the champions found the course useful to their roles, which is absolutely brilliant. The way that we engaged learners was through guidance, podcasts, case studies, top tips. We've got absolutely loads of different ways of sharing learning, and that really appealed to our users, those different types of medium to help learning, depending on different people's preferences. And before I move on to the quantitative results, the operating sites, as I'm sure you can appreciate, were hugely limited during this pilot. However, savings have been made. So again, thank you so much to the sites that were part of this. So we had some sites that were able to do the 8 weeks, the full 8 weeks of data capture, and some that were only able to do 4 weeks of data capture. So that's during, they might not be consecutive weeks, so that's during opening, closures, and so forth, but this is where we've got complete data sets. And you can see we've had a good number of covers going through both of those 2 different scenarios. The weight of food waste per cover is a really important measure. That's something that that is the most reliable measure during all of the other fluctuations that have been occurring over this time frame. So we've had some really huge reductions. The weight reduced by 38% in 4 weeks. Now, for those that were undertaking the measurement in 4 weeks, that is despite a 170% increase in the number of covers. So even though the number of covers was increasing, the amount of waste per cover was decreasing significantly. And that means money on the bottom line. So you can see the costs savings here. For the 8 weeks, obviously there was more disruption during the sites that were operating during this time. You can still see a 23% reduction in the amount of weight per cover, which is huge. And again, a significant saving on the bottom line. So we're absolutely delighted. And it just shows that the teams have really nailed this during incredibly difficult times. This is about culture change. This is about engaging and empowering staff to take action. And you can see there's really clear evidence that even during a pandemic, we've saved significant amounts of food waste. I'll move on to a recording that we did earlier last week with Elior UK, who have just been brilliant supporters of the learning. We'll hear from their head of CSR, Charlotte Wright, who was the data custodian, had that role. You'll hear more from her perspective. General Manager Carl and Chef David. So General Manager Carl was had the role of data custodian, and Chef David was a participant. So you can hear all about how they found the course right now, if I can get the technology to work. Thanks so much to Elior, who are here with us today to share their insights from the Becoming a Champion pilot. I'd like to take a moment to invite Charlotte to introduce herself, please.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Charlotte Wright. I'm the Head of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability for Elior. So my role in the pilot was organisation sponsor. So that was around launching it in the business, engaging our teams, finding teams to get involved. And it's been a really fun process.
Thanks, Charlotte. And over to Carl.
Hi, I'm Carl Perkins. I'm a general manager for Elior, working in the southwest of England in one of our BNI contracts with Elior Lexington. And I've been a data custodian and active participant in the program.
Thanks, Carl. And over to Chef David.
Hi, my name's David Thorpe. I'm the head chef for hospitality at Linklaters in the City of London. We were a participant in the pilot here, and I was engaged in getting the chefs involved and starting to get them to understand more about what was the pilot and how we could possibly move forward with getting it into the business.
So Charlotte, Elior signed up to the pilot programme of Becoming a Champion. What was your motivation for this, and how did you gain support internally?
Sure. So first of all, we absolutely love getting involved. I just wanted to make that really clear. It's been an absolute pleasure to be part of the pilot. But to answer your question, Elior have targets in place to reduce food waste as part of our carbon reduction strategy. So in that sense, food waste is already on the agenda. It's something that we're already acting on. We're looking at ways to engage. We know that to achieve our targets around reducing food waste, we do rely on our site-based teams. We rely on our teams to use their own skills, expertise and knowledge to identify how to actually make that reduction happen. But from a central point of view, it's my job to think about ways to engage, as I've said. So it's about, okay, how can we keep this topic alive in the business? And how can we think of ways to get our teams to think differently about this? So really, it wasn't difficult for us to gain support internally. Our operational teams are always keen to get involved in new projects, and really, as the Guardians of Grub pilot and campaign is so engaging, we had no problem really with finding colleagues that wanted to get involved in it. So it was a bit of a no-brainer. So I didn't have any challenges in terms of engagement. Yeah.
So as an organisation sponsor within the Becoming a Champion system, how much work did that involve, and what were the benefits that you experienced, Charlotte?
So there wasn't a lot of work involved. It was really easy, quite simple for us to get our access. It was simple as providing some details to your team, and then that gave us really the access to the portal, which is all very self-explanatory actually. The benefits, I mean, I think I've said this before, the number one benefit is really how engaging the marketing is. It's really easy to get on board with what the message is about everybody has a role to play, and that's all follows through as a theme really nicely in terms of the learning modules. I mean, in terms of getting set up and getting everybody else set up, so as an organisation sponsor, like I say, it was kind of my role from a central point of view to get everybody on board. That was straightforward too. It only really required a few calls. We had a few team calls so everybody was on there and could ask questions. But when everybody was logged in and had their access, it was quite self-explanatory for them as well, because when you go through the learning modules, it explains to them what they need to do, what the steps are. So it was really quite simple and straightforward. The only tricky thing for us was the timing because of COVID. So when we were identifying our site teams, we had to I just had to put a few extra calls in to operations teams to sort of find out, okay, who's actually there, which sites aren't closed, which of our teams could get involved. And we had a bit of a mixed bag. So some of the sites were able to record food waste. Some of our sites were focusing just on the learning modules. So yeah, once we'd identified them, it was and got their access set up. The main benefit is that the program talks our teams through. You don't have to do a great deal as an organisation sponsor. So that's probably the best benefit of all, I would say, knowing how busy we all are.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So, Carl, you were a data custodian within the Becoming a Champion course. What did that involve and how did you find it?
Well, I found it really useful, really easy, as Charlotte's kind of said, to get hold of the, through the portal, all of the learning modules, etc., which myself and my team went through. Really, engaging, really informative. We've always traditionally kind of looked at measuring our waste. So for us, it wasn't a jump into the unknown. We've been very used to using kind of a trim tracks style waste system where we were measuring literage. So we swapped over from measuring literage to measuring weight. And then basically from that, we entered the data onto our kind of data collection tool through the portal, and kind of did that on a weekly basis, really easy to do.
That's great. And how did you find engaging the teams with that, Carl?
So we talk kind of daily, but kind of Monday we would have the results from the previous week. And we would then use our Monday kind of meeting as an arena to talk about waste as a topic. The guys would obviously have had time over the weekends to have a look at what was in fridges and freezers, and the things that we may very soon be coming towards end of dates and things like that. And it gave us an opportunity to look at menus and to really kind of bring the level of waste that we were creating as a site down, and also that continuous kind of level of awareness within the team. Really, it's really useful.
So my question to you is, Chef David, how easy was it to work your way through the resources through the Becoming a Champion course?
I think it was really easy. As some of the guys have touched on before, the way it's laid out, the way all the visuals are done, the information, the way it's portrayed is very easy to absorb. It's a lot of information, but being able to stop, pause, come back, watch the videos, etc. I think it's a really good tool, and it's very well done and very easy to use, and work your way through it was kind of makes it fun almost when you see the cool visuals and everything else. It's very well done.
At an operational level, Carl, where all of that action is happening, what did you find happened with your teams as you progressed through the course, and how did you report the data? Did you physically track it on the paper tracking sheets, or were there other ways that you did that?
Yeah, we track data on paper tracking sheets that I then put onto the online, and we also have a tool that we use within our contract as well, that we use to report to our clients, so we can kind of report it twice, if you see what I mean. So very interested in the data as well. And basically, we found that as we progressed through the modules and progressed through, using the tool, the team became just really generally more aware. They took ownership. They were really interested to see the results of how much waste we were producing. We gave out kind of, little bags of coffee bean waste for people to put on their gardens. So, and the guys, really got involved and were telling the customers about, how well we were doing at managing our waste as well. And like I say, it's kind of fed into kind of day-to-day practices, ordering, all those kind of things have really benefited. So I'm ordering smaller orders more frequently now. And our waste I think our waste has come down considerably as a result of being involved in the programme. So happy all round, really.
Chef David, what were the benefits to your team of taking part in the course, and how easy do you think it will be for them to embed any changes as you move to business as usual?
I think, it was a great benefit because it's such an eye-opener just for us as, what is our normal day-to-day is just, what we put in the bin, but actually to stop to take a minute to think about what we do in this industry. It is amazing how the teams have adapted to it, and they've seen it, and it really changes the way that they look at things. Obviously, the term business as usual is obviously a very scarce thing to say nowadays, because obviously none of it is usual, but obviously I think they have been adapting to it. They will get into it, and I think because of the great way the resources are put to them, and the knowledge that they learn from it, and being able to see the outcome at the end of it, I think it would be very easy. And we have started to implement small little parts to it, and they've adapted to it very well. So I think, especially with the difficult times of everything's changing all the time, I think it's a good time, if anything, because it's not necessarily as busy, it's not as business as usual. So, and it's giving them something a little bit more fun to do while they're sort of doing their work as well. So I think, yes, it's going to be easy. It's going to be a little bit difficult, I'd say, actually, but they're adapting well, and so as we all are at the moment and the times we're in.
What would your top tips be to those organisations who are interested in taking part of the next cohort for becoming a champion? I'll go to Charlotte first. So organisationally, what would your top tips be on how to engage? What happens next for you as an organisation having done the course, and what sort of results did you see?
Sure. So my first top tip would be from a central point of view, hold regular calls. So we held our calls every couple of weeks with everybody on. So all our different sites that were involved. It was really nice to bring everyone together and just say, how are you doing? What are you finding works? You know, we established from one of those calls that someone was having trouble with how they recorded. It was only a tiny thing, but just by having that conversation, data that they were recording in a certain way, they're like, okay, that's how you do it. And then just sharing some of the really nice stories about how we've managed surplus. You know, Carl may touch on this, where he's had to manage kind of extra stock from other sites, and talking about the way that it's just really great to share. So that's my first top tip. My second top tip would be to just capture those nice little moments, and find a way to bring that together. So the way that we did that was we kind of took a note of all of the highlights from the team. So we asked everybody, okay, what's been your number one highlights or anything that you'd like to share? And then we put that into our own case study at the end. And it was just a really nice way to recognise what everybody's done and everybody's efforts in just, you know, one format, in a document that can then be shared with our directors and other teams to help inspire moving forward. So those would be probably my two top tips.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Charlotte. And moving to Carl, in terms of your top tips from a data and visibility of surplus, what has this shown you and what do you plan to do next with that?
It's shown that it's you know, I think it's quite a daunting thing when people kind of, you know, look, try and reduce your waste, but it's with the resources and keeping, you know, the topic kind of fresh with the team. It's not a difficult thing to do, and I think kind of going forward, it's certainly taught us how to look at our stocks, how to look at our production, and how to look at our day-to-day ordering, and it's kind of embedded the mantra that, you know, do you necessarily need all of that today? So yeah, just generally opened our eyes really, and kind of going forward, it's hopefully going to manage, you know, to keep GP up and the wastage down. So there we go.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Carl. And to Chef David, what would your top tips be in terms of how you've got your teams engaged with the learning modules, and also your thoughts on how this will benefit you in the longer term?
So we've sort of, we got them more involved in the kitchen. We would do exercises with the chefs where we found that a lot of the time, some of the guys would feel this is more of a sort of blaming tool for what they're doing and what they're throwing away. But we had to change that mindset with the guys to say that this is not a tool for us to blame you for doing something wrong. It's for us to learn as to what we're doing and how better to do things. So we had an exercise where we actually took one of the bins and we put loads of bin bags all over the floor, emptied it all out, and we went through it together. And we came up with ideas. All of us had the input as to say what you could do with the stuff. So, we had one of the chefs came up with the eggshells. You can steam them and then you can crunch them down, and people use them on their allotments for slugs so they don't crawl over into their crops and stuff like that. So everybody has the knowledge there. But I think it's getting them all involved, and you'll see how this will come out of their shell more, and they start to get more involved into it. I think that was one of the things we found at first, especially in the kitchens for the chefs. And the long-term benefit from that, as I say, it opens your eyes as to what you're using, how you're using it, and being a lot more cautious and in more of a fun way, because people start to think more about what could they use their stuff for. Do I need to throw it away? Could I freeze it? Could I save it for this? Or there's been lots of ideas. We've had one guy think of maybe even the cores of pineapples being used as a substitute for bamboo shoots. So there's been a lot of input, which is very good. So I would definitely say, engage your teams, do exercises, don't just literally record it, take it out, have it all together, do it as an exercise together, and get everybody involved, because it's not just us as managers in the kitchens to look at it and have the responsibility. It's also their responsibility, and if you get them involved, they will give more back to you.
Thanks so much to so brilliant. Thanks so much to Elior UK. As you can hear, they really got a lot out of the course, and I know the team are available for any questions today. So if you've got any questions for Elior specifically, please do use the Q&A function and we'll get back to them. Again, thank you to all of the sites as well as Elior who have participated in this. We really, really needed your insights to get to the next stage. And we've got a series of recommendations that we've taken from feedback from our brilliant champions that have gone through the course. So firstly, we had feedback that there was quite a lot of repetition. So the average time per module was about half an hour per module. So we've streamlined a lot of the learning so there's less repetition, which in turn means there's less time required from teams to go through the learning. We've also changed the access so that all users start at the same level, so that everyone's building on their understanding at the same pace and have all got the basics as well. So everyone's starting at the same place. You can stop at whichever level is right for you, or equally everyone's got access to all 5 levels should you wish. We recognise that having a fixed 8-week audit sometimes doesn't work if you've got certain activities within your site. So if you've got menu changes or so on, or you've got particular activities that you want to look at specifically. So Wendy will be explaining the different audit lengths that you can select. What we would recommend is that if you're a multi-site business, that you select the same audit length for all of your sites, because then you'll get a much clearer picture and be able to compare like for like. You don't have to, but that is what we would recommend. We would also emphasise the data that you put in is the data that we use. So please, data custodians will need to take ownership of the data that's being entered into that system. If you see a blip after you've entered it, it's really not a problem. You can amend that, but we use that for the reports. So just to note that. And the other recommendation was around learning being in cohorts, which obviously that's why we're here today. We've got a new cohort that will be opened from early July to the end of September. So you can start your learning and then start your audit after you've started some of the learning. So again, it's really flexible, the approach that we've got. So most importantly, we're creating a community of champions that are leading the way and being our guardians of Grub out on the ground. So I'm going to hand over to Kerry now, who's going to tell us about how we're going to celebrate our champions.
Thank you, Eleanor. Yes, so the Guardians Grub campaign, as Eleanor mentioned, is all about galvanising the sector to take action. We know it's really important for the sector to relate to what others are doing, which is why we want to promote the success of becoming a champion users. We're hoping this will create a ripple effect across the sector and will help to create a community of like-minded change makers. So I am delighted to share the mock-up design for our new Champions Wall of Fame with you. This has been developed to celebrate becoming a Champions Guardians of Grub champions. As you can see, it's in a collage format, and we will have a rollover function for computer-based, and it will be a tap function for mobile phones, which will enable us to see the organisation's name, the location. Some of them will have quotes, but we will also be sharing a link to your websites for the organisations. Not all of them will have quotes. We will obviously reach out to you and ask you for some. So for those of you who are part of the pilot, I will be reaching out to you shortly to request photographs of you or your teams or your top food waste reduction tips. So for example, David mentioned a few from Elior, or skin on fries is another good example. Really whatever it is that you feel most comfortable with sharing with us. For those of you who are hoping to join the next cohort, we will reach out to you in October so that we can include you and celebrate your dedication and hard work in the fight against food waste. So I hope you all like our new design, and I look forward to reaching out to you and seeing some great photos and getting you up on the website and celebrating your achievements. I will now pass over to Wendy from Virtual College, who will be giving us a live demonstration of the new updated version, which will be going live in early July.
Great, thank you, Kerry. Some fantastic results we've had. We're really pleased with some of the stats that have been coming through and the feedback we've been receiving. So I'd like to introduce you to the new and improved version for the next cohort. So bear with me 1 second. Hopefully you'll be able to see this now. So this is the login page for the system. If you're wanting to be involved in the next cohort, Eleanor will be sharing with you some information and some pilot packs containing some detailed information that you can use moving forward to actually register. One of those is a batch user upload spreadsheet, which I will very quickly show you. It looks a little bit like this. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, and it includes some very basic information around who your learners are that you're wanting to go through the cohort, and what type of role they have. Now, just to kind of define the roles, again, as Eleanor mentioned, we've got 3 roles. We've got the organisational sponsor, who is that overarching Charlotte from Elior. So they are the Becoming a Champion owner. They're the lead for the organisation. They are responsible for collating and sending this user upload spreadsheet to RAP. They're responsible for promoting and coordinating communications across the teams within their organisation, and they are the ones that are going to have access to the in-system reporting to monitor their team's progress. So that's that overarching role. The data custodian role is a dedicated site team member who is accountable for ensuring the food waste data is entered correctly from the 7-day tracking sheets into the food waste measurement tool that I'm going to show you into the system. So each site will have a food waste audit allocated to them. All of the individuals within that site will then have access to that audit, but it's the data custodian that's responsible for making sure they are entering the data correctly and cross-checking it and making sure that it's accurate. They can obviously also work through the learning content, and the champion participants are the team members working through the learning content and entering that food waste measurement data into the system as well. So just to give you a snapshot. So that data, that user upload tracking sheet will also include your preferred start date for your learner journey and for your food waste measurement. It will tell us the duration of food waste audit that you want to commit to as part of the pilot process, and also your food waste reduction target that you want to set. So that can be absolutely anything, but it gives us a benchmark for us and for you to then kind of monitor progress against. So your learners, when they have access, they will be automatically uploaded into the system. They will be allocated the learning content and the audit for their particular site. So they'll all be feeding into that one audit, and then they log in through here. So this will be their dashboard when they log in. We're still making some final tweaks to the actual journey within the system, but this is the dashboard view that learners are going to have access to. So you've got some core icons here. So your learning journey is the learning content. So the system is underpinned with the learning side of the program, and also with the food waste measurement side of the system. So you've got learning journey here and the food waste measurement tool there, very self-explanatory. You can also access your learning from here as well. So we've got a dashboard link that basically takes you directly into the learning that you have most recently been allocated, or that you are most recently been working through, and your audit will also be accessible from here as well. So it's really super simple for your champions to actually access the content, and we'll look at that in a second. The success certificates, each level has a reward certificate, an achievement certificate allocated to it. So once the learner has actually completed that particular level, they will be sent a certificate that they can download through the system. They can download it as a PDF and then save it. The Wall of Champions, it would be great if we could see some of these certificates, photos of your champions holding some of these certificates. I think that might be quite a nice promotional tool for you as organisations that you're going through, and also for Becoming a Champion programme as a whole. Assignments, now there is an activity that we've added into the system. It's not mandatory, you can do it as an optional, but as part of the process, we're asking you to upload a food waste reduction action plan. So there's templates within the actual learning content as well. I think it's around level 3 or 4 that you'll find that. So as a team, it would be great if you could then put together a food waste action plan and upload it into the system, and that's where you do that. Groups you don't need to worry about, that's just the actual groups that you've been allocated to. So we're going to be setting groups up for the overarching organisation. So for instance, Elior, we're also going to be setting up groups for those individual sites that are working together on that audit and working through the programme together. So you'll be able to monitor progress. If you're an organisational sponsor, you'll have access to the reporting. So you have this little staff tile on the system as well. And if you log into there, you'll be able to keep a track of your learners and who they are and how they're progressing through the system. And you'll also be able to pull out some reports. So the easiest one is probably going to be module allocation report. You can then export that as a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet, and you can share and analyse the results of that with your teams, maybe on weekly meetings. So going back to the dashboard, you've got the headers up here as well that just link through to your learning and success. If I scroll down slightly further, you'll see we've also got some other dashboard links here that are taking you through to some useful websites. So we've got the Becoming a Champion web page. There's some great information there if you wanted to link through to that. The Guardians of Grub website, and there's the RAP website there as well. So these are just hyperlinks that are going to take you out of this system. You also have a calendar function here, which basically links to the events within the system. So as part of the overarching program, we'll be running an engagement and a communications plan. And part of that includes participant surgery sessions. So they're webinar sessions that your champions and you can book yourself onto. It's a great way of keeping each other motivated to share successes and challenges, and for us to get feedback and RAP to get feedback throughout that journey. So if we just dig into some of these tiles, I'll show you what the program is actually going to look like and how it's structured. So when learners first come into the system, they will automatically be allocated the Champions Toolkit, which is a resource toolkit of practical tools and templates for champions to use throughout their journey. So you'll find things like the 7-day tracking sheet, the Becoming a Guardians of Grub calculator walkthrough videos. There's some downloadable packs and some really useful information around building a business case. Posters on 6 ways to save food, so you might want to pop those in your kitchens and around the business. So just some practical tools that you can use as you work through the program. You don't need to complete these in any order, it's just a resource toolkit for you to access as and when you need it. If we go back to the learning, the actual learning journey starts at this welcome and introduction module. So this is the first module that your learners will need to complete as part of the program. As soon as they've completed this, as Eleanor inferred earlier, once they've completed the welcome and introduction level, another level will then be unlocked. So we're taking learners through in a linear fashion throughout all of the 5 core learning levels and that welcome and introduction level at the beginning. So there's a series of different activities that we are asking them to complete as part of their journey. So this welcome and introduction takes around 30 minutes. It will probably take a little bit less than that. We're asking all of the champions to complete a pre-program evaluation. This is really, really important. It's just a handful of questions asking them to benchmark where they are now in terms of their perception, in terms of their current behaviour towards food waste. And this is really helpful for us because what it allows us to do is then analyse any uplift or shift in behaviour after programme involvement compared to pre, which is where some of the stats have come from that Eleanor's been sharing. So if I just go back, I've unlocked these activities for the purpose of today to show you. Within the actual program itself, they won't be able to move on to the next activity within the module, within the level, until they've completed the previous one. So let's assume I've completed the pre-program evaluation. There'll then be a little welcome video, probably by RAP and with the experts sharing their thoughts, their ideas, their motivations for you to go through the program and why this is such an important program to help reduce food waste reduction across the sector. So there's a little video there. There will then be a learning management system overview, so a little bit of a walkthrough video to share how learners can navigate through the system and the different areas of the system that they're going to engage with. It's really self-explanatory. It's a really useful system to use, but we've got that there anyway as a bit of extra support. We've also got a video on the food waste reduction measurement tool, so I'll walk you through that separately. And then there's a pledge. So this is something that we feel really passionate about at Virtual College and at RAP. We'd like the guardians, we'd like the champions to make a pledge to becoming a champion. I want them to pledge to helping to reduce food waste and being accountable for that and reporting on it. So what we'll ask them to do is just answer one simple question. Do you pledge to this statement? Do you agree with this statement? And then on completion of that, they'll be able to download your pledge certificate, which will then, oh, it hasn't popped into there, it will do, pop into the success certificates area of the system, and they can then print that out, they can share it, they can download it and really shout about, you know, their pledges. As soon as you've actually completed all the activities, the next level will be available to them. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to really quickly work through this so that I can share with you what the next level actually looks like. So ignore my answers. I'm hoping your champions will pay much more attention to this. I'm going to start the video. So there's a great little video here from Eleanor and the team at RAP, just sharing their expertise and their knowledge. I can then move on. So as soon as I've completed that activity, I can move on using the next button. So you actually do have to kind of work through. From a learner perspective, this is great because there's so many hints and tips and practical tools and templates in here that are going to be so useful for the champions as they work through their roles. This is the food waste measurement audit. I'm not going to listen to myself. I'm going to skip through it. And then I've done my pledge already, so I can download my certificate here if I want to. I want to confirm it. And then you'll see here I've got a little pop-up that says you've been allocated a new module. So basically what that means is I can then move on to my next module within the program. So as part of my my learning journey, I have completed, I don't know, I've got so many, but I've completed the welcome and introduction, and there should only be one here, but there's a foundation level. So this is the next part of the program. This is the next level that I need to complete before I can move on. So within here, we've got an e-learning course giving all the foundations and the really top tips and practical fundamentals of reducing food waste and how to do that within the business. For the purpose of this, I'm not going to work through that, but there's this is just a 15-minute e-learning module, so it's really interactive, really engaging. There's lots of hyperlinks here to some really useful tools and resources. And then there's that post-level evaluation. So each structure, each level is the same structure, but there'll be more activities as you work through. So as soon as you've completed one level, the next level will then be available to you to complete. And the idea is that you start at that welcome level and you work through right to level 5. Okay. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of some of the learning. The food waste measurement tool, I'll walk you through that now. I'm just conscious of timing. I've got a few minutes left. So depending on your user batch upload audit, you'd have indicated the audit period you wanted to measure for, whether that's 4, 6 or 8 weeks. We will then allocate the appropriate audit to your site so that all of your champions within that site can feed into that audit. So bear in mind that you probably will have multiple people completing the same audit. So this is what the audit tool looks like. This, for the purposes of today, is a 4-week audit tool. Each segment of the pie represents a week, and each subsection of the pie represents one day and one activity basically that we're asking you to complete. It's really straightforward, it's really easy to use, but there is some really important information that we need you to be mindful of when you're completing this. So that's why we've got in bold, in capitals, instructions, please read. The data that we're going to be analysing, that we're going to be reporting back to you on, is only as good as the data that's actually going into the system by your champions. So please, can you make sure that they're putting it in correctly? And that's the overarching responsibility of that data custodian role. So we'd like you to submit data at the end of each week, ideally, or you can do it on a daily basis as you go through. That's entirely up to you, but you need to complete all days for every single week of your audit period. You need to complete in numbers only and in kilograms. So, for example, if you've got 200 grams, we want that input as 0.2. We don't want any additional numbers or characters or wording. We just need 0.2 because that's what we're going to be running the reports on. We'd like you to only include a maximum of 2 decimal places for each measure. So for instance, 0.258 should be rounded up and input as 0.26. We don't want you to enter any shifts or returns after your data, just the actual numeric value. And that's very important to avoid any reporting errors. We'd like you to record a measurement for all questions. So for every single day, if you don't have any data for a particular option, just simply input 0 and then move on to the next one. You need to record a measurement for every day, and we'd like you to include the number of covers. Now that's up to you to determine within your sites what a cover is, and that's going to vary from site to site and organisation to organisation. So as long as you're consistent with that definition within your organisation, the data should be accurate for you coming out. If you're able to segregate your food wastes into different sectors like preparation, spoilage, plate and other, please input these within the system in those categories. If you're not able to segregate data, if you don't, the waste, if you maybe don't have enough bins or space in the kitchen, simply input it all in this non-segregated option. And there's a notes section in here as well for you to tell us anything that you notice about your waste. So what kind of items being thrown away on a regular basis, how maybe you could have avoided that, and that's then really useful for you to discuss in teams in those weekly meetings. You can export and track your progress at any time through the export button in the report, which is up here, and that will export this as an Excel spreadsheet, and you can then discuss your findings on a weekly basis. And if you want to, you can then drop these figures into the Guardians of Grub tracking calculator, which will give you some immediate stats. What we'd also like you to do, if you're able to do it, it's optional, is to upload the 7-day tracker for each week into this audit as well. Now that's just a data safeguard. So for your data custodians, when they're looking at the data and analysing it, it would be helpful for them to pinpoint any errors or issues within the data that's being input if they've then got a copy of that. And I'll show you what that looks like. So within your weeks, you can either access it from here, or you can actually just click on the segment of the pie chart. And this is where you then input the data. So again, we've got some instructions: input waste in numbers only, no other wording, and use a maximum of 2 decimal places. So for Monday, the form is exactly the same. The audit will be assigned to multiple different people. So for anybody that's actually filling this particular day in, it's useful for us to know and for you to know who's completing it. So I'm just going to say, well, it's me completing it today. So that you will then see a whole list of team members. So you would just choose the name of the person that's inputting it. So let's just say we've done 260 covers. Please don't put any returns in. I can just literally tab down to the next section. We've done 1.5 kilograms of plate waste. Notice I'm only inputting numbers only. I'm not inputting anything else. We've got plate waste, let's say 0.36. Again, I only want up to 2 decimal places, please. And if you've got anything else, so you might have some bones, for instance, or eggshells, or whatever else that might be. Coffee grinds is a good example as well. If you're only inputting total non-segregated, you might just want to put the total in here instead. Otherwise, you'll just leave that blank if you've inputted into the individual categories. And is there anything you'd like to tell us? So we had lots of chips today, lots of chip waste, and lots of potato peelings. Obviously, you will have that if you've got lots of chips. But that's then useful information that you can discuss within your teams with the chef to then start adjusting the portion sizes or start adjusting your menus. And then I'm just going to save and complete it, and then I just close it. So that's that segment turned green, so you'll see that that's actually completed. If I scroll down to the bottom of this week, so the process is exactly the same for each week. It's all mandatory for the weeks. There's an optional activity here, which is where you can upload your 7-day tracker sheet. So all I would do is I would choose a file. So if you've got it on your bins, for instance, you've got it above your bins, you can just take a photo of it. You can take a photocopy, you can then PDF it, or you can just upload the actual, where is it here? Find it. 7-day tracker sheet. This is the PDF. I'm just going to upload a PDF, but you can upload a Word document, you can upload a picture, and then save and complete. And that's actually going to save and complete that segment as well for me. So I've then got a full 7-day worth of data, and I then have that 7-day tracking sheet as well as a safeguard. And I go up to the top level and I can see the audit, it's starting to complete. And you basically do that for each week. It's very, very self-explanatory, very easy to use. We do also have some events that we're running as part of the programme. Any active events that you'll notice here, ones that you've booked yourself onto or your champions have booked themselves onto. We also have available events. Now we've set up 3 events within the system as part of the next cohort. We've got a kick-off surgery session. It's a webinar that's taking place on the 9th of July from 10 till 11. So that's really a kick-off. It's to get your champions motivated, get them excited and start introducing themselves and that community of practice to support each other as they go through the programme. We then have a mid-surgery session, mid-programme surgery that's happening on the 20th of August from 10 till 11, and a final surgery to kind of assess findings and how they got on and start pulling together some of that that kind of qualitative feedback throughout the programme as well. And that's pretty much it. So you can just...
Brilliant whistle stop tour there, Wendy. There will be Wendy will do some tutorials that will load up onto the system as well, which will take you through in more detail, and everything that Wendy's described, all of the learning, how to measure, everything that we've been describing is all within the system. So you will learn all of that. It's very clearly explained, and we'll have knowledge checks throughout those learning levels as well. So that's how we know that you've developed your competence and confidence with each of those levels. Thanks, Wendy. You're right to stop sharing and we'll just go to Q&A. Thank you very much, Wendy. And thank you to everyone today. So if you've got any questions, I can see a couple have come through. Please do pop those into the Q&A function, and they could be to any of us or including Elior as well. So please do keep them coming. So there's a really great question actually that's come in. So about terminology and how people perceive food, saying food, and then food waste. So absolutely right to pick up on this. It's a really important part. We are quite obsessive about how we talk about wasted food and food waste, because what we're talking about is food staying food for as long as possible. So it's a really important part of how we talk about things, and also how we define food waste. So there's edible food that has become waste, and then there's inedible food that has become waste. So obviously the thing that we really want to focus on is the food that could have been eaten that ends up in the bin. That's the part that we're really looking at. So picking up on potatoes, which I'm slightly obsessed by, potato peeling waste, you might not need that if you have skin on chips. So, there are all different techniques that you can look at to start addressing some of these aspects. So we then encourage you to split it into the prep, spoilage, plate and other categories, because that's where the real business benefits and operational benefits come. If you can only, as Wendy explained, if you can only do unsegregated waste, that's absolutely fine, but you as an organisation will find an awful lot more value in the future. Sorry, I'm reading a message at the same time that I'm trying to answer something. Apologies. There is no setup cost for this. It's all completely free to access and free to use for any UK hospitality and food service business. If you're an organisation with an interest in the food, hospitality and food service sector, but aren't actually an operator, we can also give you access to the learning. So please do let us know. And if you want to sign up to this cohort, you need to email guardiansofgrub@rap.org.uk, and we'll send you a what we like to call a backpack, which is a Becoming a Champion starter pack. So that's going to include all of the information that Wendy's described, terms of engagement, frequently asked questions, how to join, the key tools that you will need, and also some wording, some copy that you can use to reach out to your sites as well. So we've had another question about timing. So to do foundation levels 1, 2 and 3, at the moment, each module in the pilot, we knew because of the number of people going through the modules, it was about half an hour for each of those modules. As I mentioned, we are streamlining this new July cohort. So the version that Wendy was showing will be streamlined. So we would envisage that that would take significantly less. So around 20 minutes per module, I would guess at, but we don't know the numbers until we've got people going through the system. Thank you for those questions. Any other questions, particularly for Elior, who are on the call?
Eleanor, did I miss you answering Andrew Dunn's about what is the initial setup cost?
So the access is completely free. So the setup cost is for your time and your teams. It's the time that you take to reach out to your teams and help them get up to speed. But access to the course is completely free. Any other questions? Oh, there is a point that I really need to make. We're finding that our RAP emails can often end up in junk, or your systems won't let us through at all. So if you can make sure that you're enabling and unblocking RAP emails, perhaps you might need to go to your IT system. That would be incredibly helpful. So if you're not receiving any emails from us and you're expecting to, then please do check your systems as well to enable access. It would be really, really great if we could get a sense of who was interested in taking part from those of you that are on the call. We've got over 70 of you on the call, which we're just delighted with. So could you pop in the chat if you think this is something that you'll be pursuing, or in Q&A? It would be fantastic to get a sense of how many of you are thinking of joining. If you could write in the chat, that would be great. Wonderful. We've got a couple more questions in. So do we have any public sector or NHS organisations and case studies? We are always looking for more case studies, and we absolutely would love to have more hospital case studies. I did put a plea out to an HCA and HEFMA webinar yesterday to have more NHS sites. We had a number of sites registered for the initial pilot, but of course, given the circumstances during COVID, it simply wasn't possible for them to participate. But there was a huge amount of enthusiasm from hospitals to take part. So we would love to have more of you on there and being champions and ambassadors. So wonderful to see universities, NHS coming through, as well as private businesses. We would absolutely love to have, the more the merrier. As far as we're concerned, we can never have too many Guardians of Grub and Guardians champions. So thank you very much. We do have some examples from, we've got a school example within the Becoming a Champion website, and we've also got some really fantastic insights from both Phil Shelley, chair of the NHS Food Review, and Andy Jones from Public Sector 100, chair of Public Sector 100. So yes, we would love to have more public sector. So if you are in the public sector, please sign up, and we'd very much welcome you on board. And yes, there's also information about surplus food within the module. It's not something that we capture specifically within the measurement tool, but if you have got information, you can always write that into, there's a free text box, so you can tell us about any surplus that you're considering there. Just checking the chat, absolutely. So the next steps are that we will be circulating this recorded version. It will be on YouTube. We'll have it on our Becoming a Champion webpage as well. So please do share that. If you want to raise awareness of this course to others across the industry, please hashtag Guardians of Grub, any social media, and we would love to spread the word as far and wide as possible. And thank you so much for your time. I would like to put a special thanks out to everyone that's been part of this pilot, and particularly the businesses that have been going through the most devastating time over the last few months, and your encouragement, support and commitment to this agenda has just been really quite breathtaking. So we are delighted that we're running this new cohort, and we would love you to be part of that. So thank you so much for your time, and please do get in touch if you've got any questions.